Welcome to this episode of Inside Legal ESG. Today, we are so fortunate to have with us Miri Miller, Deputy General Counsel at Dentsu, where she has been for more than 10 years. Miri and I met while serving on a panel for Practicing Law Institute late last year, and I was so intrigued by what she shared about Dentsu's ESG journey. I just knew I needed to try to get her to agree to be a guest on the Inside Legal ESG podcast series. You might be saying to yourself, but Dentsu is not a law firm. But it is a professional services firm facing some of the same challenges and issues with respect to ESG as do most law firms. We can learn a lot from other industries, particularly professional services firms, who are a bit further along in their journey. So welcome, Miri. I'm so happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Pam. I'm really excited to be here.
We are as well. So tell me about Dentsu, for those of us who weren't familiar with Dentsu until now.
Dentsu is a global network of marketing, media, and creative specialists. We help brands predict and plan for disruptive future opportunities, and we create new paths to growth in the sustainable economy. We use insights to connect brand, content, commerce, and experience underpinned by modern creativity. As part of Dentsu Group, Inc., we're headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. We have 69,000 employees worldwide working across 4 regions. That's Japan, the Americas, EMEA, and APAC. Outside of Japan, we're in over 145 markets and are powered by 100% renewable energy. We partner with 95 of the top 100 global advertisers. Dentsu Group is a signatory to the UN Global Compact and RE100, and we're listed on the DJSI, that's the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and FTSE for Good. We're members of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and Dentsu Group, Inc. President and CEO Hiroshi Igarashi is also a member of the World Economic Forum Alliance of CEO Climate Leaders. We are founding members of AdNet Zero, the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership Business Transformation Group, and are co-authors of the Net Zero Roadmap.
My goodness, that's an incredible list of credentials. How did Dentsu get started on this journey? It sounds like you've been at this for decades, given that list of credentials.
Well, first of all, I actually want to share with you something that Anna Lungley, our Chief Sustainability Officer, has said. People tend to conflate ESG with sustainability, but they are 2 different things. ESG is a risk-based framework for investors and by definition is limited. Sustainability takes a broader view of risks and opportunities that an organization faces in a resource-constrained and divided world. Sustainability is what drives innovation, efficiency, revenue growth, reputation, and employee engagement. So Dentsu works to develop leaders who embrace sustainability rather than using ESG frameworks to do what's the minimum required by law. Now, as lawyers, our job most often is to help clients understand, manage, and mitigate risk. So it makes sense if lawyers and law firms are most focused on ESG. But I would encourage all lawyers to really upskill themselves to truly understand how sustainability is different and how they can help their clients move beyond ESG to being sustainable businesses. So back to your original question of how Dentsu got started on its current sustainability journey, that really started in 2019. Our social impact group spoke to over 300 people, including employees, clients, investors, and activists to explore our company's and our industry's impact on society, the economy, and the environment. And what these conversations did was really generate deep insight into our material risks and what our biggest opportunities are. And one insight that came through consistently was our ability to shape human and societal behavior. Net zero transitions are, and they will continue to be dependent on independent and individual and societal behavior changes, particularly reducing demand for fossil fuel intensive products and increasing demand for more sustainable lifestyles. Now, I say more sustainable lifestyles because we're not just talking about people switching from buying and consuming carbon intensive products to products that are more sustainable. We're also talking about reducing consumption overall. Scientists believe that positive behavioral shifts can deliver between 40 to 70% of the emissions reduction needed to achieve net zero.
Wow.
So our work in the marketing and advertising industry means that we have a significant influence on the way people think, on the way they feel, and the way they act. And we have an opportunity that we're taking to really lean in and use our talent and capabilities as a force for good. So that is the insight that really underpins our 2030 social impact strategy. We Dentsu, but also our industry as a whole has an opportunity to change mindsets and influence the behaviors of people, and we can help our clients do the same.
So I want to take a step back a little bit because you mentioned your sustainability officer and you mentioned your social impact team. One of the questions I often get from law firms is, how do we staff this? Where do these people sit? What department do they belong to? I would love to hear from you how your staffing is structured at Dentsu to deal with your sustainability program.
Thank you for that question. We have at Dentsu a global social impact function where we have specialists working on our social impact strategy across the globe. In addition, we have a social impact champions network that is a group of passionate, like-minded individuals from all parts of the company, all functions, all businesses that want to help achieve our social impact strategy. That's important because you can't just have one function responsible for changing a whole business. So all employees have a role to play. And as a result, we've made sustainability training available to all employees. We have brief trainings of 1 hour to 4 hours that all employees can take. And in fact, this is now being mandated to all of our legal and compliance professionals in our group. And we also are sponsoring cohorts of employees around the world to take an 8-week online course called Sustainable Marketing, Media, and Creative from the University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership. Wow. I am currently taking that course.
Oh, how wonderful.
I've just hit the halfway mark. We just finished week 4. And I'm a lawyer supporting marketing, media, and creative professionals, not a marketer myself. So it's really eye-opening and inspiring to learn about the ways that the industry impacts the climate crisis and what we as Dentsu can do to mitigate and reverse those impacts, but also what I can do as a lawyer within the company and within the industry. It's been a huge shift in thinking for me.
And it's so interesting that you said not only is this training being offered, but in some cases, particularly for the legal department, it's being mandated. Tell me, what role does the legal department fulfill in this whole sustainability movement or program, what have you, at Dentsu?
So right now we have a group of lawyers, a small group of lawyers within our overall global team who form a social impact working group, if you will, that support the social impact function at Dentsu and all the needs that they have. But we also recognize that it's critical for everyone in our team to understand Dentsu's social impact strategy, how we intend to achieve it as a company, and what we can do from our department to support that strategy. So that was why we've decided this year to make it a personal objective, for every person in the legal team, the legal and compliance team, to undertake this training. We all will have a role to play.
And the training that you talked about being either 1 hour or 4 hours, that's online and available to anybody at Dentsu?
That's right.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. Is Dentsu facing the same sort of client pressure around ESG and sustainability that law firms are starting to feel?
We are. Many clients are on their own ESG, sustainability, and or net zero journey. wherever they are in that journey. And they're asking us to explain to them what we are doing, or asking us to commit to supporting them on their journeys. That said, sometimes we're further along than our clients, and we have the opportunity to help them accelerate their own activities. We have a very large initiative to decarbonize our service offerings to clients, and we seek to leverage our talents and capabilities to help clients evolve their own product and offering strategies. So I'm certain that this will continue to be an important area of discussion with clients going forward. And just as we are similarly asking our law firms about their sustainability, DEI, and pro bono initiatives and commitments before we establish an engagement with a law firm.
Is it a deciding factor, or is it one of the things that you would consider when you're looking to engage an outside law firm?
It is one of the things we consider, but it is a very important one of those things. I would say we would very likely not work with a law firm if that wasn't something that we felt was a strong commitment.
I also noticed that you're SBTI certified on your own net zero plans. When did you set net zero targets, and how is that work progressing?
In 2020, we became the first company in our industry to set a science-based target at 1.5 degrees, covering our international operations, which was formerly known as Dentsu International. We just recently underwent a corporate reorganization. So we used to have Dentsu International as a separate organization from Dentsu Japan. So Dentsu International set these targets in 2020, and we have been using 100% renewable energy and achieving REI 100 status, which we still maintain. And we now, through our corporate reorganization, are committed to procuring 100% renewable energy in Japan by 2030. In October of 2021, the group that was previously Dentsu International set a decarbonization target to reduce emissions by 90% by 2040, and was one of the first companies in the world to have that net zero target verified by Science Based Targets Initiative. In 2022, we have now extended that commitment to include Japan, and are in the process of setting a new group-wide SBTI approved net zero target. And to achieve that target, we will be working closely with our suppliers and clients to decarbonize across our full value chain by 2040. So that includes both a near-term target of reducing absolute scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions by 46.2% by 2030, and that's off a 2019 base year. A long-term target to reduce scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions by 90% by 2040, also from a 2019 base year. And that's a Dentsu group-wide target that's now pending approval from SBTI. We have a target to reduce flight emissions by 65% by 2030. And that's a target we set in May 2021. And we have been using exclusively renewable energy since 2020 across international operations, and have a target to do so in Japan by 2030. And a reduction of carbon emissions from media in our international business by 46% by 2030, also from a 2019 baseline, in alignment with that net zero target for scope 3.
So I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper on the flight emissions, because that's something that a lot of law firms struggle with. Like Dentsu, a lot of law firms have a global footprint. How do you travel to see clients and to do your business and yet still achieve your flight emissions reductions? Any advice for law firms on that one?
I do. And I recall we talked about this when we did that PLI panel together, and you had a slide that highlighted that business travel is by far the biggest contributor to a law firm's footprint. And I would say it was also a big contributor for us as a professional services firm, because seeing clients often, you want to be in person. I think one of the things we learned during the COVID-19 pandemic is that you can do a lot of meetings over Teams or Zoom or whatever your choice of video conferencing is. Not every meeting needs to be an in-person meeting, especially if travel is required to do that. So business or travel will always still be required at times, but we have made a shift to a thinking around travel with purpose. Is it really needed to travel? And if you do have to travel, travel smarter. Consider public transportation. Do you have to fly? Can you take a train? I'm based in New York. If I have meetings to go to in DC, I went to a conference recently in DC. Flying was off. There was no option to fly. The train is the way to go, and it's easy. It's not a significant burden to hop on the train instead, and it's much better than flying. So consider what travel is required, what method of transportation, if travel actually is required, who is your choice of supplier, what's the route you take. Those are all things that have impacts that you can consider. From my perspective, as far as working with law firms, I don't need all my meetings with external counsel to be in person most of the time. I have some outside counsel that I work with very frequently that I've actually never met in person, and it would be lovely to meet them in person, but it hasn't been critical. And so there's no need for anyone to get on a plane or even a train for us to have some of the conversations that we have. And I think a lot of clients would agree with that, not only because it's less wasteful from a sustainability perspective, but as clients, we also don't want to pay for law firm travel when we have spent the last few years learning how to build deeper relationships over video conferencing. So it's not the same as in person, but I'd rather save those moments for when we really need them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I read somewhere somebody said, we've all learned that while Zoom isn't perfect, it's really not that much worse. And the savings in time, energy, wear and tear on our own bodies, let alone the environment, it comes out the winner many, many more times, which is good. We've all learned a good lesson. I noticed this phrase in your social impact report. We partner with brands to achieve meaningful progress as a force for growth and good. Tell me more about that.
I'd love to. So every day we work with clients to help them understand consumer behavior. That's what we do as a business. We seek out new spaces for growth to help pivot product strategies and position clients in the marketplace where they can capitalize on new opportunities. And with our global network of designers, creatives, innovators, we are well placed to support clients to create a pull for more sustainable and inclusive way of living. The business case for sustainability, it's well established. People want sustainability, and that desire influences their purchasing decisions. More than 2/3 of millennials say they will pay more for products from sustainable brands. And a recent Dentsu survey showed that 81% of people surveyed said they would stop using or buying products that harm the environment. We have so many more data points that will say similar things that show this is the direction that consumers want. It's a good business case to move in this direction. So we recognize we have to help our clients both with their own strategy as well as with our services. So helping decarbonize media spend. We are committed to objectively and transparently assessing the emissions associated with our placement of media. And by the way, until I got actively involved in Dentsu's social impact journey and starting the sustainable marketing, media, and creative course, I had no idea the advertising and media industry was such a major contributor to climate change or what the climate impact of our work was. That was just such an eye-opening moment for me to learn that advertising is nearly as big a climate change contributor as the travel industry. Mind-blowing.
Wow.
So it's critical that we can calculate the emissions that form our work and be able to make sustainable changes. We are working with Bristol University's Department of Computer Science and some of the world's most innovative media companies on a project called DIMPACT, a web-based tool that calculates greenhouse gas emissions associated with serving media from the point of content production to delivery to the end user. And by working with our media and technology partners, we can build an accurate picture of the emissions associated with the placement of different digital media types. And we're focused on digital media because that's the biggest part of a advertiser's media plan typically. So this calculator will help us provide the data and information needed for our customers, our clients, to assess the carbon impact of their digital media strategies and to select lower carbon alternatives.
Wow, that's amazing. What an incredible tool. I think we're a long way from that for most law firm clients, but it's interesting to note. I had no idea that the advertising industry was that large a contributor to emissions. We're just about to run out of time. I have two more questions. One is, what lessons learned on Dentsu's journey could you share with us for law firms who are just embarking on this path?
So I think a couple things that I already mentioned are lessons learned that can be taken in-house to law firms to think about their journey. One is that an ESG strategy, or really I would encourage you to go beyond to a sustainability strategy, can succeed if it's championed only by the social impact person or the ESG person. You really need to educate and empower everyone in your organization to understand the impacts of the business and what the goals are and how everyone can work to achieve them. And I think that's important both for evolving the impacts of the law firm itself, but also for everyone to understand how they can help their clients. So even if you're not a lawyer whose area of expertise will be ESG, you should know how it affects your client and be able to bring in the right people or suggest the right people to help the client based on your knowledge of them. And that's a great value add. And the other thing, again, is going back to how travel is such a big part of a law firm's footprint. Really think about traveling with purpose and traveling smarter. And do you need to be with a client in person or not? Sometimes a client will lead that decision, and sometimes you could suggest, is this business travel truly necessary or not? And I think that's going to be a hard change for law firms. It's definitely in our nature as lawyers to be with our clients in person. And there are some issues potentially with advising a client over Zoom. So figuring out that right balance of being in person or being over a web call or phone call.
Yeah. Okay, final question. If I can convince you to come back on this podcast a year from now, what will have changed?
I hope that Dentsu will have a even larger, much larger network of social impact champions who are actively focused on changing our services and supporting our clients on their transformational journeys. I know how transformational just being in this 8-week course has been for me. And the more people we are educating and putting through training, whether the shorter training on Dentsu University or this longer Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership course, it's turning me into a climate activist. Let's just say that. And I think more people like me in the company, and I've already met a number of people who are in the course with me now or took it last year, are feeling the same way. So the more and more people we educate. So I think a year from now, our numbers will hopefully have, tripled, quadrupled, and we'll have a network of climate activists helping to transform our business.
Well, I think your business is doing incredible work already, not just in the work you're doing for clients, but as a great example of how a professional services firm could and perhaps should embrace sustainability in the way they run their own firm and also in the way they advise and counsel clients. So thank you so much for being a great example for us today, Miri. And I will invite you back a year from now when we'll test your hypotheses. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Pamela, and I will be happy to speak to you again in a year.
Thank you.